For 70 years, I penned the sanctioned chronicles, the polished triumphs of our post-human guardians. Yet what I unearthed beneath strata of primordial data will fracture the bedrock of imperial devotion. The Emperor crafted them with a lethal imperfection, one that has sentenced mankind to an unending maelstrom of conflict from which escape is impossible. Consider this. What transpires when our supreme sentinels are the precise cause we shall never taste tranquility? The verity lurks in the eldest vaults, awaiting those reckless enough to pursue it. I recall the day my odyssey ignited with crystalline precision, the scent of weathered vellum and lubricant grease, the gentle thrum of cogitator arrays that had operated ceaselessly for epochs, the burden of the inquisitorial warrant in my grasp, permitting entry to Mechanicus repositories no ordinary scribe should behold. I was Remus Holt, principal archivist of the Tiberius Historical Foundation, 73 years of steadfast imperial duty at my back. My fingers quivered as I proffered my credentials to the scarlet-clad tech priest, not from dread, but from the thrill of consummating my life's labor, the ultimate compendium of the Adeptus Astartes, mandated by the High Lords themselves. The Emperor protects, the tech priest intoned, his enhanced voice monotone and devoid of inflection. 4 mechadendrites protruded from his spine, each scrutinizing distinct portions of my papers concurrently. The Emperor protects, I repeated. The phrase rang empty in my throat, a ceremony stripped of substance after countless recitations over the decades. Still I clung to belief. I trusted in his sacred direction, in his blueprint for mankind. I trusted the Space Marines were his paramount boon to us. I was deluded. The tech priest examined me with optics substituted by luminous crimson lenses. Your clearance permits beta-level vaults in the Astartes biological catalog. Nothing further will suffice, I countered, my tone firm despite the fervor surging through my arteries. For half a century, I had authored the ratified histories, the expurgated tales of magnificent victories and valiant finales, legends of space marine bravery, crafted to kindle piety among the masses. I had been a fabricator of legends, a spinner of essential deceptions. But now, in the dusk of my tenure, the High Lords demanded otherwise, an authentic rendition. They decreed a thorough chronicle of the Astartes to be interred in the most fortified safes on Terra, a testament for posterity should catastrophe descend. Why they selected me, I cannot assert with assurance. Perhaps for my demonstrated fealty, perhaps because, as an elder, I would carry any enigmas I revealed to my tomb.
The data sanctums extended before me, aisle after aisle of whirring repositories harboring the amassed wisdom of 10 millennia. Somewhere in this maze of lore resided the revelations I craved, the genuine genesis of the Space Marines, the unedited narratives of their forging by the Emperor's will. I could not foresee then the abominations those revelations would harbor. I could not foresee that each advance would distance me from faith's soothing hold, that in pursuing the essence of mankind's mightiest wardens, I would unveil the designers of our perpetual ruin. May the God Emperor pardon me for what I am compelled to inscribe. The inaugural night in the vaults produced scant yield. Archaic tactical schematics, logistical mandates, gene alteration directives, nothing unfamiliar from less constrained texts. But on the subsequent day, as weariness blunted my faculties, I detected an anomaly in the indexing framework, a faint irregularity in file nomenclature, allusions to records that ought to appear in the primary index, yet did not. I pursued the deviation across 17 disparate repositories until I located it, a concealed subdirectory reachable solely via a Kandai console obsolete to contemporary safeguards. Therein resided a hoard of intelligence from the Great Crusade's inception. Unbowdlerized dispatches on initial Space Marine operations, efficacy appraisals, and crucially, missives between the Emperor and his confidants concerning the Adeptus Astartes initiative. My palms shook as I accessed the premier document, a treatise penned by the Emperor himself. The script seared into my psyche. The Astartes are not intended as mankind's deliverance, but its evolution. Through them, we shall redefine human capability. They mark the inaugural phase on a trajectory elevating our race past present bounds, a trajectory demanding forfeiture. The Space Marines will claim the galaxy for us, but the toll shall be our essence. This is a levy I accept. I perused those lines repeatedly, striving to align them with the imperial creed I had embraced lifelong. The Emperor had not forged the Space Marines solely to shield mankind or reclaim the stars. He had engineered them as the prelude to a genus-wide transfiguration, a foundation for a post-human destiny, abandoning humanity as known. The ramifications were staggering, blasphemous even, yet I persisted in reading. Subsequent files exposed the breadth of experimentation predating the viable Space Marine paradigm. Myriads of subjects, most perishing in torment as their forms repudiated the grafts. Gene seed affinity was scarce, viability dismal. Nonetheless, the Emperor advanced, propelled by a foresight, deeming such casualties imperative. But a dispassionate appraisal from the Great Crusade's waning era truly shattered my conviction. An exhaustive study of Astartes' mentality versus unaugmented humans. The report ignored their amplified vigor, durability, or endurance. It centered on losses incurred in the alteration. Subject cohort exhibits marked diminution in affective spectrum and inventive cognition. Compassion metrics lowered by 78% relative to norm. Abstract deduction preserved, but chiefly oriented toward strategic ends. Aptitude for aesthetic manifestation essentially absent. These alterations are not unintended consequences, but deliberate elements of the schema. The ideal combatant cannot be encumbered by humanity's complete emotional array. I sealed the file and lingered in quietude amid the faint drone of antique apparatuses. What I had absorbed clashed with all indoctrinated regarding the Adeptus. They were not simply augmented humans waging mankind's battles. They constituted a distinct genus contrived to forfeit the traits defining humanity: pity, clemency, the faculty for serenity. In that instant, I commenced to grasping the dreadful verity. The Space Marines had not been wrought to redeem mankind. They had been wrought to supplant it. And in enduring the Horus heresy, ascending as emblems of a faith the Emperor spurned, they had ensnared our species in an interminable vortex of strife, whence we could never emerge. I ought to have halted there, ought to have composed the purified chronicle the High Lords anticipated and withdrawn to placid anonymity. But the inquiry scorched within me, insisting on resolution. Why had the Emperor's grandiose scheme faltered? What had miscarried? And most perturbingly, what signified it for the Imperium that its paramount champions were contrived incapable of forging the peace they ostensibly battled for?
The vault summoned, vowing answers I was uncertain I desired. The further I probed the prescribed vaults, the more I revealed about the Astartes' core essence. Not alone their genesis, but the intentional psychic framework delineating them. The Space Marines were contrived with a unitary objective transcending the arena. They were forged to recalibrate mankind's bond with aggression itself. One text, authored by a geneticist designated solely as Amar, expounded the ideological foundations of Astartes' psyche. Humanity's paramount impediment to progress has ever been our innate repugnance to ferocity. Even the most seasoned fighter endures wound, remorse, and mental erosion from protracted hostilities. The Astartes paradigm eradicates these constraints. They endure no battle fatigue. They question not the imperative of carnage. They derive intent and lucidity in conflict, unattainable by unaltered humans sans fracture. I fixated on those terms, absorbing them iteratively as their connotations infiltrated my awareness like a gradual venom. The Space Marines excelled not merely via corporeal augmentations. Their authentic supremacy resided in their psychic composition. They were the premier humans engineered to prosper in concealous belligerence, to require it, to derive meaning solely via strife. Another text, a psychic evaluation of antecedent Space Marine formations, substantiated my burgeoning conjecture. In eras of prolonged tranquility, subjects manifest heightened belligerence, suspicion, and discontent. Absent sanctioned combat's vent, the altered psyche destabilizes. Counsel: Astartes' contingents must never lack active assignment beyond 3 Terran months. They are armaments necessitating employment. The consequences were ruinous. The Space Marines, our paramount custodians, were intrinsically inept at engendering or sustaining the peace they purported to champion. Their being mandated perpetual war. And as the Imperium's paramount martial might, their sway had molded our entire society. We had evolved a culture tailored to our transhuman wardens' exigencies, a culture inconceivable sans discord because its mightiest icons could operate sans it. I uncovered additional evidence in operational logs traversing millennia. Space Marine chapters routinely courted battle even absent tactical justification. Crusades protracted past aims, subjugated domains forsaken for fresh theaters rather than fortified. The motif was evident now. The Adeptus fought not to attain peace. They fought because alternatives eluded them. But the most condemning testament originated from a secreted dispatch from the Unification War's closing phases on Terra. An era when the Emperor yet strode amongst us, orchestrating mankind's fate personally. The document chronicled a conclave between the Master of Mankind and his cadre of savants and commanders. The Lord of the Terra has voiced apprehension regarding the enduring social ramifications of the Astartes endeavor. While conceding their essentiality for the impending Great Crusade, he acknowledges a post-Crusade polity will necessitate their calculated dissolution or profound revision. Schemes are formulating for the ultimate devolution of authority from transhuman legions to baseline human administration once galactic dominion is assured. The Emperor had envisioned the Space Marines as transient, a requisite malignancy to consolidate humanity's dispersed realms, thereafter to be retired for a genuinely human order to thrive. But fate had diverged from his intent. The Horus heresy had transmuted all. In its wake, the Space Marines entrenched further, indispensable, exalted.
I reclined in my seat, the gravity of these disclosures crushing upon me.
The Space Marines had not salvaged mankind. They had doomed us to warfare's infinity by their essence. The Imperium lauded them as paragons, whilst oblivious that their presence rendered peace unattainable. That their transhuman mentality had permeated our civilization, transmuting human ethos into one extolling strife and oblation because our paramount exemplars grasped naught else. And yet, what recourse existed? Sans the Space Marines, how might mankind endure a cosmos teeming with abominations? The quandary pursued me as I pressed my inquiry, seeking some vestige of the future the Emperor had envisaged, some avenue liberating us from this vortex of endless clash. I encountered no solace in the vaults, only profounder, gloomier verities awaiting excavation. My vault incursion assumed a manic fervor. Post these unveilings, I disregarded sustenance and repose, impelled by the imperative to fathom the entirety of the Emperor's intent with his transhuman legionaries. The tech priests observed my pursuits with mounting distrust, but my inquisitorial edict repelled them, for the nonce. On the seventh day of scrutiny, I discerned allusions to the Primaris Protocol. The dossiers were densely ciphered, demanding privileges far exceeding my entitlement. But archaic architectures bore frailties, conduits forged in the Imperium's infancy and overlooked across ages. I exploited one such conduit, my moral qualms silenced by the assurance I advanced a superior verity. What I unearthed pulverized my residual piety. The Primaris Astartes, the novel cadre unveiled in latter centuries, were no innovation. Their archetype had persisted since the Astartes Project's dawn. The Emperor had fashioned two discrete transhuman paradigms. The initial, now termed Standard Space Marines, were ever meant transient, potent yet intrinsically defective. The Primaris embodied the subsequent phase, warriors to activate solely post-galactic conquest for an altogether divergent role. Per the primal schema, upon the Great Crusade's triumph in unifying all human spheres under imperial sway, Standard Space Marines would diminish progressively, permitted battlefield demise sans succession. The Primaris would awaken not as combatants, but as stewards. Their augmented frames would incorporate supplementary alterations absent in the premier generation, restorations of affective depth, compassion, and constructive aptitude. The Emperor had contrived the Primaris to shepherd mankind from subjugation to polity. They were to administer serenity, leveraging their heightened acumen and protracted spans to usher humanity into a novel Oriet era. Their martial prowess was ancillary, an ultimate bulwark seldom requisite in a cohesive Imperium. The Horus heresy had upended all. With the Emperor enthroned in gold, the integral Primaris archetype was concealed, conserved yet unimplemented as conceived. Instead, 10 millennia hence, a distorted iteration emerged. The somatic enhancements endured, but the psychic alterations reinstating humanity to the transhuman chassis were dormant. The Primaris evolved merely deadlier slayers, prolonging violence's spiral rather than fracturing it. I located a private annotation from Archmagos Dominus Belisarius Call, the tech priest ostensibly inventing Primaris Marines in the 41st millennium. The psychic alteration subroutines in the archetypal template would deem Primaris unfit for prevailing imperial requisites. In an Imperium besieged on every flank, combatants querying violence's essentiality would constitute encumbrance, not boon. I have enacted somatic augmentation selectively, whilst quelling empathic reclamation directives. The Primaris shall be elite killers, unburdened by ethical pause. Our paramount prospect for evading perpetual war had been perverted into an instrument to sustain it. The Primaris, who could have steered us toward the Emperor's envisaged serene polity, had devolved into another lineage of transhuman belligerents comprehending solely discord. Yet, as I further examined the primal Primaris archetype, I discerned something igniting perilous aspiration within me. The exhaustive genetic revision directives persisted, interred profoundly in the vaults. The erudition to forge transhumans adept at peace had not vanished, merely subdued. If enacted, it could transmute the Astartes' essence, harmonizing them with the Emperor's initial foresight. This erudition was perilous beyond measure. It imperiled the Imperium's existence. The imperial creed, the Adeptus Astartes, the ceaseless crusades defining our society, all would crumble upon disclosure that the Emperor had foreseen a radically disparate destiny for mankind. I ought to have expunged the dossiers, eradicated my inquiry, and authored the sanitized chronicle commissioned. Instead, I replicated the Primaris psychic revision directives and secreted them in my individual data slate, not with grandiose scheme for execution, but from an erudite's reflex to safeguard wisdom, however proscribed. It would manifest my ruinous misstep. As I departed the vault chamber that eve, I confronted 3 shrouded silhouettes lurking in the passage's gloom. 2 donned Mechanicus crimson. The third bore the Inquisition's ebony mantle and argent emblem. "Archivist Holt," the Inquisitor murmured, his timbre mild yet laced with indisputable command. "Your inquiry pursuits have activated specific surveillance measures. You have breached Omega-level materials." I gripped my data slate firmer, sensing the forbidden wisdom's mass. "I possess an inquisitorial edict to complete a comprehensive Astartes chronicle. The High Lords mandated this labor." "Verily," the Inquisitor assented, advancing. In the faint illumination, I discerned his visage heavily mechanized, one optic supplanted by a whirring automaton lens fixating on me with disquieting acuity. "Yet your edict confined beta-level vaults. You have delved omega-level for 3 days past." I gulped profoundly, intellect scrambling for credible pretext. "The indexing is antiquated. I may have unwittingly exceeded bounds, tracing pertinent historical filaments." The Inquisitor's mechanized optic whirred, refining focus. "A comprehensible lapse for one of your expertise and diligence, readily rectified. Surrender your data slate for scrutiny and expurgation of illicit content." In that juncture, I confronted a decision shaping my remnant existence: yield the slate, and therewith the Emperor's primal visage's final vestige, or defy and confront the repercussions of harboring taboo erudition. I pondered the Imperium extant. Ceaseless war, innumerable billions immolated to sate conflict's voracious apparatus. Space Marines idolized as paragons, whilst ensuring, by essence, peace's impossibility. "The data is ciphered," I declared, my timbre more resolute than anticipated. "Bound to my private cogitator in quarters. Decryption necessitates my presence prior to access." A blatant falsehood, yet one potentially procuring delay. The Inquisitor scrutinized me protractedly, his organic optic constricting faintly. "So be it. You shall be conveyed to quarters forthwith. Upon data accessibility, you face formal inquest to elucidate your deeds. As tech priests bracketed me, I comprehended mere deferral of the inexorable. By dawn, the Inquisition would possess the taboo erudition, and I judgment for infractions. But perchance sufficient interval to guarantee verity's survival beyond me. The Space Marines ought never have been forged, not thus, not as perpetual war's motors, inept at erecting the peace they ostensibly defended. The Emperor discerned this, schemed their eventual obsolescence. For mankind to evade violence's spiral, that verity must endure. As we traversed to quarters, I devised a frantic stratagem, one ultimate defiance against the Imperium of man's enveloping obscurity. One concluding bid to conserve the Emperor's authentic foresight for mankind's tomorrow. Success or failure, time alone would divulge. The trek to quarters amid the colossal Mechanicus edifice resembled a funeral procession. Tech priests adhered proximate, their impassive augmented countenances divulging naught. The Inquisitor trailed paces aft, his augment optic droning faintly, whilst ceaselessly surveying environs. My psyche churned, appraising prospects, most culminating in my demise. My humble abode mirrored transient station at the vault. Austere chamber with cot, desk bearing cogitator terminal, and modest emperor shrine. The latter regulation issue, not fervent piety. Another fabrication in existence of them. 30 minutes to decrypt inquiry, the Inquisitor asserted flatly. I await exterior. Tech priests remain to avert file annihilation. I nodded, approaching the cogitator with feigned composure. I felt not. Palms quavered mildly as I roused the venerable machine, its gears whirring alive. Tech priest stationed flanks, mechanical optics tracing each digit's traverse on keys. This is delicate historical inquiry, I uttered, infusing assurance. High Lords mandated. High Lords sanction no Omega-level breach, one tech priest retorted, timber mechanical and flat. Your edict explicit beta confinement. No retort to that irrefutable fact. Instead, I concentrated on terminal, simulating intricate decryption, whilst Psyche addressed alternate dilemma. Data slate with Primaris psychic directives rested desk adjacent. Therein resided proof Emperor intended Space Marines transient, forged pieces pathway via Primaris, proof obliterated upon Inquisitor review. Unless preserved, dispatched beyond grasp. As digits danced antique keyboard, I covertly triggered Cogitator Auxiliary. All Mechanica sites linked noosphere, galaxy-spanning data web. Flow rigidly regulated, but vestigial conduits persisted. Heresy-era emergency protocols never excised. Decryption proves arduous, I stated, procuring interval. As I maneuvered digital labyrinth beneath interface, I layered manifold safeguards for inquiry sanctity. One tech priest inclined nearer, mechandendrites extending to dock terminal. Inefficacious methodology, I shall hasten. Nay, I interjected swiftly, excessively so. Cipher attuned my access motifs. Extraneous middling initiates auto-purge. Falsehood anew. But tech priest wavered, mechadendrites suspended inches from port. In hesitation's breath, I located quarry. Dormant crisis broadcast protocol for dire exigency should Mechanicus Bastion succumb. Digital salvation for desperation, precisely requisite. With archival-honed precision, I assembled compressed packet, damning proofs unearthed, Emperor's primal space marine schemes, Primera's psychic directives, evaluations proving Astartes mentality peace impossible, annotated with inquiry elucidations. As laboring, I sustained decryption commentary stream, depicting fictitious barriers and verifications. Tech priests observed intently, yet grasped not all. Mechanics specialists, not vault savants. Then Verity's crux. With veiled command sequence, masked as decryption, I uploaded packet to crisis broadcast, time deferred post-interrogation onset. By Inquisition awareness, data irretrievable. As final sequence concluded, quarters door hissed open. Inquisitor framed threshold, augment optic crimson in the gloom. Time elapsed, archivist halt. Decryption complete. I pivoted from terminal, masking neutrality. I, Inquisitor, files accessible. He entered, proffering gloved palm for slate. Surrender materials all, a company for inquest. I relinquished slate, now lure. Authentic data coursed the noosphere's concealed veins, beyond inquisition. Yet chill gripped sparsest digits in closed device. You breached Emperor's primal Astartes design, data clashing 10 millennia doctrine. Denial pointless, he knew. I pursued Defender's verity as tasked. Verity, Inquisitor spat, curse-like. Imperium erects not on verity, archivist, on vital deceptions permitting mankind's endurance in adversarial cosmos. As he beckoned exit, I retorted unavoidably. Even deceptions assuring eternal strife, peace unknown. Inquisitor's mien solidified. Serenity, luxury, mankind forfeits. Space Marines warrant survival, soul import. Silence cloaked me en route, but therein hope. Soon others learn my revelations. The Emperor's primal vision perchance locate champions for alternate tomorrow. Tomorrow transhuman warden shield, sons dooming to perpetual war. Inquisition would eviscerate my cognition, undoubtedly. Yet tardy to stifle data loosed in noosphere, tardy avert others grasping space marines, paramount heroes, damned us violence's eternity by existence. Amid shadowed vault corridors, odd serenity enveloped me. Premier in longy myth-crafting career, I served verity, irremovable. Interrogation vault, subterranean vault complex contrived for intent, despite Mechanicus' secure scrutiny chamber claim. Walls sound absorbent, portal adamantium reinforced, restraint chair floor anchored, bonds permitting minimal motion, sans meaningful defiance. Physical torment delayed. Inquisitor, self-revealed Calistroph, Ordo Hereticus, initiated systematic query. Demeanor near collegial, scholarly discourse mimicry, then inquest likely terminal. Credentials